What is good, audiophiles and sound designers? Thanks again for joining me. Today we are talking about quite a hot topic at the moment, and that is room correction and acoustic calibration systems, and more specifically, the new Sonarworks Reference 4 Studio Edition. Let's dive in and have a look. So the core concept behind Sonarworks Reference 4 is to remove any coloration that's added into your sound through either your speakers or your studio environment. As music producers and sound designers, I'm sure we've all been in the situation, or we're all still stuck in the situation where we're not 100% convinced by the acoustic accuracy of either our studio monitors, our headphones, or the room that we're mixing in. This is where Sonarworks Reference 4 steps in. The idea is that the system uses a purpose-built analysis microphone to take a sort of snapshot of the frequency response of your room, and then use an algorithm to correct the frequency of your room, or of your monitors, or of your headphones. So there's various packages that Sonarworks offers, whether you're wanting to correct your headphone sound, your monitor sound, or you want the full-on analysis and calibration package. There's a link to the Sonarworks website in the description below, so if this video does end up convincing you, definitely head on over there and check it out. So I got my hands on the Sonarworks Reference 4 Studio Edition with mic, so that for the purpose of this review, that's the product that we'll be looking at, but the concept and the idea of the entire system kind of remains throughout. Whether you're using headphones, the system comes with a plethora of sort of predefined headphone frequency response curves for pretty much all the industry standard studio headphones on the market. So the analysis procedure is pretty straightforward. There's a walkthrough system that talks you through the whole process, and it really makes the whole experience very user-friendly. I tried a couple of other previous room analysis tools and software in the past, and I always felt that the systems were way too convoluted. There was no sort of user-friendly approach to sort of correcting the room. And for a system like this, which is kind of designed for, medium to pro users that are most probably going to be in a home environment, the fact that most of the softwares up until now kind of required you to know quite a bit about acoustic properties and stuff like that to get an accurate sound. That's why I think Sonarworks is so different to all the other systems up until now, is it's so user-friendly. You almost don't need to know anything about acoustics to be able to get an accurate sound that you can rely on. So once the setup checklist is complete, you've plugged in your mic, set up 48 volt phantom power, made sure your sample rate is correct and everything, then the system prompts you to put the microphone in front of each of your speakers one by one while it runs a test. So here's the crazy thing, is the system managed to pick up exactly how far my speakers are from each other and how far my listening position is away from my speakers, literally down to the centimeter. It obviously uses some high-end, almost kind of echolocation algorithm to pick up where in the room your mic is while it plays different signals through the speakers and apply the algorithm accordingly. So once you've mapped out the distance between your speakers, the distance between your listening position and such, then the system moves on to the actual analysis and measuring process. So here's where it gets really interesting, and it's actually pretty fun. The screen displays where your microphone is while it's playing these different tones through the speakers. And while you move the microphone around, you can actually see the mic moving exactly accurately to how you're moving it in real time. So on the screen, the Sonarworks software will prompt you to move the mic to up to 30 different locations to get an accurate reading of what your room sounds like at all those different locations. Once the system's run all its measurements and analysis, it then gives you a curve of exactly the frequency response of your room. And just another thing to show you guys how accurate the system is, when I was busy installing it, it asked me to punch in the sort of microphone ID from the exact mic that I received in this package. And it turns out that every mic that leaves the Sonarworks factory gets calibrated to a specific frequency response. So as I punch in the microphone ID, the software then recognizes the exact frequency response of the microphone that I'm holding in my hands right now. So it's able to give me an exact representation of what the frequency response sounds like in my room. Because we all know that every single microphone is going to sound ever so slightly different. So when you start looking at sort of analysis processes, using different microphones can vastly throw off the readings that you're getting. So once I've got my measurements, once I've got my frequency response calibrated, then you're able to either apply the frequency to the Sonarworks system-wide application, which basically applies the changes to any sound that's coming through your system. So if you're streaming from YouTube, if you're listening to your waves, or you're playing through Tractor or something like that, it'll use the system-wide application and apply the calibration to your system. If you're using a DAW, you can put the Sonarworks Reference 4 plugin as VST or AU on your stereo output, and that way be able to calibrate it inside your DAW. The cool thing about the plugin is it has pop-ups that remind you certain things, like make sure you've sort of adjusted your ears to what your new room sounds like, make sure you bypass the effect before rendering, and all sorts of stuff like that. Again, another reason why I think the system is just going to be so good for guys who don't necessarily understand the entire process of acoustic calibration, but they just want a sound that they can rely on. So immediately after enabling the calibration, I was completely blown away. It's almost as if I never realized how much sound I was missing and how bad the acoustics in my studio really was. I was always convinced, because I think I'd kind of just gotten used to the fact that certain frequencies were boosted and certain frequencies were dull in my studio, and I kind of just mixed around those. And I ended up using a series of different headphones, different referencing speakers. I would reference in the lounge, I would reference in a car, I would reference in as many different positions as I could, based on the fact that I wasn't really 100% convinced by the frequency response of my studio. Now, it's all changing. I mean, I'm opening up projects that I knew had issues after, referencing backwards and forwards, and I've kind of been meaning to go back to them and fix them up in the mix. And suddenly I'm hearing those problematic frequencies on my system rather than on a rig or in a car or something like that. I'm hearing them on my system, and it's almost like you're able to snipe into those exact frequencies and you can just hear the problems instantly. So this was still after first opening the plugin, and then I did some reading and I chatted to some of my friends who've been using the system for quite some time, and it turns out that I hadn't even turned on the linear phase option yet. The increase in sound that I was perceiving was kind of like a 50% to the perfect sound calibration setting. And when I switched it over to linear phase, it was like bass notes and low frequency and mid-range content was just punching through so much clearer. I was hearing sounds in the subs that I wasn't even sure my speakers could really produce. And I'm hearing stuff in the stereo spectrum in some of my favorite tunes that I didn't even know was there in the first place. So I can safely say this is pretty much going to make its way into my everyday workflow. I'm probably going to rely on this 100% every time I mix a track. And the coolest thing about it is it offers you various sort of predefined curves. So say, for example, you want to get different reference points of sort of how your mix would sound on hi-fi speakers or something like that. You can quickly switch between these different reference points in the Sonarworks software. So you can get a couple of different references of what your mix would sound like on different setups. So there's various other really helpful features built into the entire system. I'm not going to get too in-depth in the video, but I'm going to be posting a written review on the IDM Mag website, so definitely stay tuned for that. You can check out the tech specs and some more in-depth details on the product over there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to overlay a couple of reaction shots of what I was going through when listening to some of my favorite tunes once I had enabled the Sonarworks calibration, and then I'm going to give you my final thoughts on the product. So I'm going to go ahead and say this product is essential for anybody who really values the quality of their audio, and they're not in a situation where they can afford millions of rands of acoustic treatments and, professional studio time and all sorts of stuff like that. But you want to be able to rely on the sound that you can get either in your headphones, on your studio monitors, or in a basic home studio. Sonarworks also has various other really cool options for guys who are just sort of audiophiles and they want to get the most out of their headphones. There's a couple of different packages that Sonarworks offers. So check out the link in the description below, head on over to their website and definitely check out this product. It is super cool. 10 out of 10 all around. I'm super convinced, and like I said before, I think I'm going to end up relying on this product a lot more than I originally expected. I think it's going to become somewhat of a crutch in my mixing workflow. I know after plugging it in and listening to it for the first time, I was completely convinced. So hopefully that helps you guys a little bit. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. If you guys use this already, also let me know in the comments. Maybe you've got some tricks for me to learn in terms of the calibration and the different settings that the software has to offer. If you like what I do and you want to support my channel, head on over to my Patreon, check out the different pledges I've got for you there. As always, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. See you guys next time.